Okay, so hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which I'm joining you today. And I recognise their continuing connection to country. I pay my respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us here today. I also want to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the many nations from which you're joining this webinar from. So my name is Janice Chen. I am chairing today's webinar. So I am Deputy Director, Research and Systems at Curtin University Library in Perth, Western Australia. And I serve as a board member of SCOSS, and where I represent CORE, the Council of Australasia University Librarians. So welcome to this session. This session is co-hosted by Open Access Australasia and SCOSS. On supporting the critical open infrastructure that underpins our global open research ecosystem. So today we'll learn more about the 4 open infrastructure initiatives that SCOSS has endorsed in this current pledging round. This session will be recorded and the recording will be shared by the Open Access Australasia website. Please also ensure that your mic is on mute unless you are speaking. So to today's program, to start off, we'll have Angus Cook to speak from the perspective of the CORE office, and then I'll hand over to Rosalie Black, SCOSS coordinator, and followed by the 4 infrastructures. And then we'll come back for questions. So please feel free to post your questions to the chat anytime during the session, and then we'll ask those questions at the end. So now I will introduce our first speaker. Angus Cook is the Director Content Procurement at the Council for Australasia University Librarians CORE. CORE is a recognised supporter of SCOSS-backed open science infrastructure, and promoting SCOSS pledges is part of CORE's open infrastructure advocacy. Angus has over a decade of experience working with library vendors, partnering in the supply of information services for STEM, humanities, health, and law. His experience also includes consulting and provision of library management systems, digital archive systems, discovery layers, authentication, and interlibrary loan products. Over to you, Angus.
Great. Thanks, Janice. And thank you everyone at Open Access Australasia for the opportunity to share some information as to how CORE procurement supports through its consortium service SCOSS and the infrastructure projects that it supports. I'm only going to talk for a few minutes before I hand over to Rosalie, and I expect my section here will probably be the boring bit because I'm covering off all of the administration and the invoicing processes, but they're fairly straightforward. But I will add that CORE does see great importance in the work that SCOSS does. I'm sure everyone's aware that CORE is heavily involved in working with publishers around our open access agreements and are very much involved in the content side. But we also feel that open infrastructure and the infrastructures that support open access to make that content equitable, more available, to make the metadata more useful, is just an important aspect or service alongside the content itself. So we do feel it is really important that members support these services, and we're pleased to be able to lend a hand with this as well. Excuse me. So in terms of the way that it works, each year CORE facilitates member payments to the most current SCOSS infrastructure projects. That's the way that we do things in this region for SCOSS. We only, we only have the capacity to support each new round of projects each year for 1 year. We feel that this is useful because it allows all of the new projects to have an opportunity for core member funding. So when we do this presentation again, probably this time next year, we'll be talking about how core through its system will facilitate the payments for the next set of projects. And I'm sure Rosalie will talk about how those projects are decided and how there's, you know, a continual rotating sort of portfolio of projects each year. So we've got, I think, a bit of a variation on the sort of standard SCOSS model, in that, you know, when we've looked at our capacity and what we're able to support, we've decided that we will support the new projects that are announced each year for a single year. As you'll hear from Rosalie, there are many, and from the other speakers today, there are many other projects that SCOSS supports. And our suggestion is that if there's an infrastructure that the institution wants to support that's outside of the 4 new ones, or however many new ones there are, contact SCOSS directly, and they'll be able to assist you in making a contribution to those other projects. Here are the suggested contribution amounts. 4,000 for institutions with FTE greater than 20,000, 2,000 for institutions with less than 20,000 FTE. And as an alternative, if your institution is not able to support either of those amounts, €375 is the amount that is suggested. Now, if we get to 10 or more institutions committing to support a single infrastructure, there's a bit of a volume discount of 25%, which would be applied once we get to that point. Now, we are happy to work with any amount that the library or institution wishes to support with, which could be more than the amounts listed in those bullet points, or it could be less. Simply let us know and we can sort of adjust things in Consortium Manager, where we track these pledges according to your institution's capabilities. Agreements are listed in Consortium Manager. So those that are used to using Consortium Manager will be able to go into the system right now, and they will see the 4 current projects: SciPost, Make Data Count, Episciences and African Journals online, or speak to the content coordinator at your institution, who would be able to assist you with this. We've set a deadline for contributions this year of the 5th of December. So you've got a little while before making your commitment, and it's really great to see that we've already had one institution commit to supporting all 4 projects. So it's good to see that somebody's made an early decision on that. Then the way it works in terms of invoicing is that once we get to that cutoff point, we will issue the invoices to members with 30-day payment terms. At the same time, we'll request an invoice from each infrastructure. And then once all payments are received from the members, we simply make that payment back to the infrastructure. So we handle central invoicing, and that makes it easy for our members, so the members don't need to set up different suppliers or people under different payment codes. It will be invoiced on a call invoice, which your institutions will be already set up to receive for. If you need invoicing before that date, that's fine. Just let us know, and I'm sure we can raise an invoice. We typically need sort of 1 week prior to your invoice deadline to be able to do that. So that's it really. I just wanted to cover off on the processes around how you make pledges and how that works in our systems. As always, just email us at consortium@core.edu, and unless there's any other questions, I'll hand over back to Janice and Rosalie.
Thank you, Angus. It's great to hear that we already have one who are ahead of everyone else in terms of making pledges. So I'm going to introduce Rosalie Lack, who is our next speaker. Rosalie is the Global Sustainability Coalition for Open Science Services Coordinator. She is responsible for managing SCOSS Family community activities, implementing communications, and contributing to strategic initiatives. She has worked previously with the African Digital Library Support Network and the University of California, Los Angeles, California Digital Library, and Electronic Information for Libraries. She has a Master of Information Management and Systems from UC Berkeley School of Information and a Master of Studies in Law from UC Law, San Francisco. Over to you, Rosalie.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you also to Angus and to Call for your continued support. Really appreciate it. And also to Australasia for hosting us today. Thank you so very much. So I am Rosalie Lack. I am the SCOSS coordinator. And so what I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to go pretty quickly, but I'm going to give you just an overview of SCOSS, which I think many of you may already be familiar, but I think it's good to get everyone on the same page. So SCOSS our aim is to help sustain vital, non-commercial open infrastructure that supports the implementation of open science. And there's a lot of important keywords in here. First and foremost is vital. And so we are selecting infrastructures that are essential to open research and to the broader research community. And I'll talk a little bit about that process. Infrastructures are non-commercial. They're open, of course, and they support the implementation of open science. So we believe strongly in that open science should be built on open infrastructure. Those two go hand in hand. So the way that SCOSS works broadly in two ways is one, we endorse infrastructures for investment, and then we facilitate a variety of ways of supporting those infrastructures. So as Angus talked about, we have a call for infrastructures to apply to become SCOSS endorsed infrastructures. And that call usually goes out every year. And then we have a pretty rigorous process where we vet infrastructures. We look at them sort of like a 360 review, where we're looking at their finances, at their strategic planning. Are they supporting the community? Are they community-led? Are they multidisciplinary? Are they adhering to open standards? There's a whole list of criteria I'm happy to share with you. And then we choose 2 to 4 infrastructures each year. And then those infrastructures, for a period of time where we work with them to get funding. And the way the funding works in this diagram, you can see, is that we work with consortia, like Call, or individual institutions or research funders to facilitate and to introduce them to these infrastructures in order to build a relationship with them. So the funding does not come to SCOSS, it goes directly from the funders to the infrastructures, with the idea that this is the model that's going to help to build long-term sustainability for these infrastructures. And we also facilitate them in other ways, which I'll talk about. So this is the current sort of portfolio of what we call the SCOSS family of infrastructures. And there's now 19 infrastructures in the SCOSS family. So we're working with them to facilitate funding, but also as a community of practice to help them with communications and with marketing and interoperability between the infrastructures and different projects that help to just help them more along a path of sustainability on many different fronts. So to reiterate, when we say we've chosen infrastructures and we've deemed them essential, we're saying they're, as I said, they're non-commercial, they're open, they've been rigorously evaluated and selected, they're essential to the open science ecosystem and the broader, of course, research system, globally recognized, widely used, they're community-driven and transparent governance and accountability. And we've certainly heard from our folks that we work with is that they really appreciate this SCOSS kind of stamp of approval, because there's a lot of infrastructures out there And it's great to be able to say, okay, these 19 we know have been vetted and chosen through a process, and we can be confident in them. And so we found this, it's a good sort of seal to help you in evaluating which ones to support. Oops, sorry. So just want to take just 1 second and step back and talk about open infrastructures broadly. And this idea is that they're not just a tool, but they're really a commitment to a shared purpose and a long-term impact. And what that means is when you think about supporting open infrastructure, I mean, there's qualities of it. For example, it is affordable by design. You do avoid these high rising costs of commercial subscriptions, certainly. But it's also that they're aligned with university values. They're supporting, as organizations, they support equity, knowledge sharing, community impact, the things that are important to us. They're community driven. They're interoperable because they are adhering to open standards by their design. And so this integration is how they work together and where they get their strength from, which makes them more robust and increases discoverability. So wanted to share that overview. So today you're going to hear from the 4 newest SCOSS infrastructures, African Journal Online, Episciences, Make Data Count, and SciPost. So I'm not going to go into detail here because you're going to get a lot of information from them, and 4 really amazing infrastructures. I mean, be ready to be impressed. And I share this slide here. And that in the end, after you've listened to them and you make a decision whether your institution is able to support them financially or not, I'd really appreciate if you could just take a moment to fill out this questionnaire, which I think maybe you'll get these slides afterwards. And it's going to really help us to understand, like, if you could support one of these infrastructures or any of them, what was your reasoning for choosing one over the other or all of them? And also, if you're not able to support, what are the barriers? What are the challenges? And this is an anonymous survey, so please be honest. And this data is going to really help us in kind of understanding what's the opportunities and what are the challenges. So really appreciate you taking the time. And finally, I just want to end with, yeah, I'm talking about money. We need money, of course, but there's other ways to support these infrastructures. So I want to really emphasize that also, in that there's ways you can promote, join, and also fund. But think about, in your circle, in your colleagues, how you might advocate for or promote the visibility of open infrastructures. For example, you as leaders in your community, you may think about joining or serving on a working group or on a board of one of these organizations, and just really trying to help change this mindset of the importance of open infrastructure and open science and the success of that. So think about the different ways you might contribute to this community also. And finally, here's my contact info. So please, any questions, this goes right into my inbox. So thank you very much for your time. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So our first speaker that's up, unfortunately, is not able to join us. Sorry. So I will be, that is from African. Okay, it's one of those, I'm trying to do 2 things at once here, from the African Journals Online. And so what I'm going to be doing is showing you a video. So get your popcorn ready. We got a movie coming. So let me pull this up, and then I need to share my screen again. So thanks for your patience. So wonderful. It is just a short video, but these are pretty informative, and so we'll kind of give you a good sense of this organization. So I will go ahead and play that now.
African Journals Online is a Pan-African nonprofit organization. We provide a journal indexing and hosting platform based on free and open source software. AJOL makes it feasible for standalone journals to become open access. We provide training and capacity building support. And we amplify African voices in the global discourse on equity and scholarly communications. We promote the openness of African research content, as well as the link between investment in higher education and economic development, and contextually relevant solutions to real-world problems. There are over 800 journals published from 39 countries on the platform. Most of these are non-profit, subject-specific, expert-led, not publishing professionals. 80% of the full text is open access, but all publishing models are allowed on AJOL, as this makes it easier for closed access titles to move to more open types and eventually to no fee or diamond open access. There are millions of full text downloads each month from all over the world from AJOL, and 50% of the repeat site users are from within Africa. The Journal Publishing Practices and Standards Framework is used for quality assessment of each applicant journal. There is a long waiting list of such journals, and also as a learning tool for ongoing partners to improve their practices. Most of the world's low-income countries are in the region AJOL works to support. AJOL is a science common already as a developing country regional journal platform, but we require assistance in terms of financial sustainability to continue meeting the current and increase in demand for our services. An appeal via SCOSS from the small but mighty African non-profit organization is to please tangibly assist in supporting AJOL's work. There is a link to do so on our website. Many thanks.
Okay, wonderful. I'm always so impressed with that organization and the number of journals and the number of countries represented. So turning next to something else I'm impressed with, we will turn now to Raphael will speak to us about Episciences and explain to us overlay journals and the work that they're doing. So over to you, Raphael.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Is it okay? Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good.
Yes.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Raphael Tourneur from CCSD, the Center for Direct Scientific Communication in France. My research unit is operating the French Open Archive, HAL, also a platform to organize scientific events, ScienceConf, and the third platform is Episciences, a platform to publish overlay journals. So what are overlay journals and Episciences? At its core, overlay journals are open access scientific journals. We do rely on existing repositories for hosting articles, datasets, and software. So we do not host the content of the journals, because the content of the journal is hosted on open infrastructures, such as Archive, HAL, Zenodo, etc. So actually, Episciences act as a layer of services on top of these open infrastructures. We provide peer review services and editorial services to the journals. And we believe that it's a cost-efficient system because hosting and preservation is handled by the open repositories, which are usually really good for this. This is a system that is compliant natively with open access mandates, because when you want to publish in an overlay journal, you have to first submit your preprint online. With this system, authors and journals also retain overlay rights. We advise the journals to use CC BY licenses, and the journals only have a non-exclusive distribution right. So Episciences has been specifically designed for publishing overlay journals. We only accept diamond open access journals. It means that there are no fees to access, no fees to publish. And actually, there are also no fees for the journals to operate on the platform. So the platform is academic-led and academic-owned. It's really important for us that we find a way to that the scholarly communication remains within the hands of the research community. It's open to all disciplines, countries, and languages. will welcome new and existing journals, and we also have flipping journals coming from commercial publishers, for instance. So what is special with the overlay model? It works with connection with open repositories such Archive, AL, Zenodo, bioRxiv or medRxiv, and also we have connection with software heritage, which is also supported by SCOSS. We also have connections with any Dataverse-powered data repository. So if you want to publish in an overlay journal, you first have to submit your preprints online on a repository. Then you will get usually an identifier and a version number. This is all that you need to submit to the overlay journal. It's quite easy. You just write identifier and submit to the journal. Then we'll start the peer review process, which is single blind or open peer review process, depending on the journal. And you can have, of course, multiple rounds of peer review. And the end of the process, if the article is refused, nothing happens on the repository. But if it's accepted, it will receive the layout of the journal and a DOI added by Episciences. And the latest version, the final version, will be published online in the repository. So from the point of view of responsibilities, let's say that registration and archiving are handled by the repositories. But Episciences is adding layer services for certification with the peer review process, and also the dissemination process is handled by the overlay journals. So this is an example of a published article on plasma science and overlay journals on Episciences in physics. As you can see, if you click on download article, what will happen is that the article will be downloaded from the repository. Here it's archive, but from the user point of view, it's quite transparent. Nobody knows that the article is not actually hosted by the journal. But if you click on Open on Archive, you will have access to all the history of the article on Archive. So you can see that version 7 has been the specific version that published by the journal. And you can also browse to the previous version, the preprints that have been submitted to the journal for peer review. So Episcience started as a project from the mathematician Jean-Pierre Demailly, and then it has become now a full-featured platform for overlay journals. So we are now just have accepted our 40 journals, and we hope to be able to have to sustain our growth. We are now expanding in social sciences and humanities, and also health sciences and earth sciences, but we are actually deeply rooted in computer science and mathematics. We also have a growing network of funders community that we would like to expand to support our growth and being able to add new journals to the platform. We believe that we are a specific good way to support the open science ecosystem and infrastructure, thanks to our connection with many open infrastructures. So for instance, OpenAlex and Open Citations to retrieve citations of our work. We're also able to retrieve datasets linked to our publication thanks to Scholar Explorer, etc. So this is an example of how we can leverage open infrastructures with Episciences. Let's start with an article published in an overlay journal. You see the article, actually the preprint and articles can be hosted on Archive. The datasets could be linked to any data repository to increase, for instance, reproducibility. You can also have a connection with software heritage for archiving the software. And if you want, we can also post your open peer review report on, for instance, the OpenArchive HAL. Once the article is published, you can also maybe have a post-publication review handled by ZBMathOpen, which is also an open infrastructure for mathematics. This is an example how we can connect all this ecosystem. But maybe in the future, why not adding your repository, for instance, or your infrastructures to Episciences to make it connected to our publications? In conclusion, I would like to say that Episciences helps strengthening the scholarly commons through its adherence to Diamond Open Access principles, its repository integration, and robust technical services that are provided by the platform. We also offer comprehensive editorial support and continuous innovation to our journal teams. We also have diverse collaborative partnerships, for instance, with libraries. Some of the libraries are also offering in-kind services to our journals thanks to staff dedicated to the journal, for instance, for copy editing tasks and things like that. I also would like to invite you to join the movement by, for instance, connecting your institutional or data repository with Episciences, supporting open science initiatives such as Episciences, maybe for SCOSS, and also support Diamond Open Access journals, maybe with human resources. That's also an option. You can also maybe consider shifting funds from paywall content to support more diamond open access publications. And why not also promoting initiatives such as Episciences in your communities? These are some examples of to join our movement. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Raphael. I appreciate to get the overview of the overlay journals, and I like the join the movement ideas. There's many things that we can be doing to become a part of this larger movement. So thank you. Okay, I will turn it over to Iratse to tell us about Make Data Count. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much, Rosalie. And good afternoon, everyone. As Rosalie mentioned, I'm Iratse Puebla. I work at Make Data Count. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the infrastructure that we work on. But as a little bit of context, just to position Make Data Count and where we fit in the data space, as we know, there's been great progress and support for data sharing and open data practices over the last years. But as we have more and more data sets, we have also an increasing need to understand how those data sets are used. We need this to guide policy decisions, inform resource allocation, and also build incentives and rewards for data sets as valid research contributions. These are questions that the different members of the community that support research are asking themselves, and also things that come up as part of the strategic discussions. Funders want to evaluate what's the reach of the data sets. Universities want to report on data produced by their faculty members, and where does it go? The same for repositories, that they want to showcase the value of their data collections. And obviously, researchers also want to showcase how their data sets are being used and hopefully have that count as part of research assessment. So we need infrastructure that enables the community to access this information in open, standardized and responsible ways. And this is essentially the need that Make Data Count aims to respond to. We work on open infrastructure for data usage information so that we can build that pool of information for the community to inform policies, support reproducibility, and advance recognition for data contributions. The work that we do spans across the cycle of the collection, standardization, aggregation, and sharing of data usage information. We have developed workflows and practices to collect and standardize data usage indicators that are in place and being used by repositories and data platforms to collect, again, different indicators of data usage, such as citations, and other that I'll be talking about. But also the downstream workflows to aggregate that pool of information on data usage that comes from different repositories and platforms, and deploy that through workflows thanks to the deployment at data sites, so that we can make that information available to the community, importantly in open ways. All of the data usage indicators and metadata related to that usage is available to the community openly under a CC0 license. So what does this look like in practice? We have, again, developed infrastructure that allows us to, allows the community to collect, standardize, and share, and then, again, hopefully respond to some of those evaluation needs through information on data citations, data views, and data downloads. As I mentioned, that information can be accessed through the data site services, data site APIs. But another example is the Data Site Commons portal that provides information on different research objects that have DOIs, obviously including data sets. So this is an example of a data set that can be accessed through the Data Site Commons portal. And those records will also display, apart from the information on the dataset object, the information available about its usage. So any counts on citations, views, and downloads, as well as their temporal trend over time. As I mentioned, an important aspect in that cycle of the information on data usage is the standardization of those usage indicators. This is important if we are to normalize that information to make it interpretable and comparable across different platforms. And a key milestone as part of this for us was the development of the code of practice for research data. This was co-developed between Make Data Count and Counter. And the idea here was to provide a standard for repositories and data publishing platforms so that they could process the data usage measures that we're collecting in transparent ways and in consistent ways. So these usage counts could be, again, compared and aggregated across platforms and make them meaningful for interpretation. Something else that we are working on is that we know that the workflows that we have in place are powerful and have been widely implemented at repositories, but we know that we have to build on this to scale the data usage information that we can capture and make available to the community. And a key project that we are working on to this end is the data citation corpus that aims to substantially expand the data citation information that we capture and make available. The idea behind the corpus is to develop a large-scale open aggregate of citations to data sets, and to do this through a number of ways. One is to leverage community collaboration, because we know that there are different groups that are trying to identify links between, for example, data sets and publications through their internal workflows, through curation efforts that they put in place. But we know that those citations were living in disparate systems and platforms, sometimes in closed platforms. So the idea is to bring all of those citations together through a consistent framework and an open resource so that they are available to the community. And also at the same time, apart from leveraging the current workflows related to DOI metadata, and those community efforts, is to also leverage the progress that has been made in different technologies, for example, through text mining that now allows us to complete text through machine learning methodologies, text mining of articles, and identify mentions to data independent of whether they are a structure reference in the bibliography. So we want to leverage that technology to also substantially expand how many data paper links we can surface and make visible to the community. We are developing the corpus, again, in collaboration with a number of groups that have contributed citations. We currently have almost 10 million data citations in the corpus. And importantly for us, this is the first time that we have an aggregate of citations that includes data sets that have both DOIs and accession numbers. So expanding the identifiers that we're including to provide that larger picture. We share the corpus as data files as we go along with our progress. Those are available on Zenodo, but we also have a dashboard that provides an opportunity to get a picture of the content and different ways of interacting with it. What we really want to get with the data citation corpus really is to enable institutions, funders, and community members to start getting insights into data usage that in ways that was not possible before. And I wanted to give you an example of this through a project that we did in collaboration with researchers at Northwestern University. They were interested in doing exploratory analysis on the translational impact of data sets, and they leveraged the citations in the data citation corpus as a starting point to identify highly cited data sets that were interested particularly on geo data sets for human data, again, because they wanted to look at the translational path for the data sets. So using the corpus as a starting point, they identified 2 data sets of interest with a high number of citations in the corpus, and then they wanted to see, explore the use of those data sets over time in different research projects. And to do this, they explore the citation networks, looking at the papers that initially identified and reported on those 2 geo data sets, but also what were the publications that subsequently cited those initial articles over time. And as you can see there from the graph, there was a substantial usage of those data sets over a period of 15 years in different publications. And another interesting item that they looked into was to look over time how many of those publications that were referring to the data sets were actually reporting clinical trials that, again, showcase that the application of that information is really getting closer to patient care. So we can see here how those data sets had impact over a period of over 15 years and really got to studies that were getting very close to patient care. So with that, again, we are here because we're participating in the current SCOSS cycle, and we appreciate SCOSS endorsement. A couple of invitations for all of you and your institutions to get engaged with Make Data Count. Obviously, one aspect is to pledge financial support to Make Data Count, and we will be incredibly grateful to receive this. We have been supported by a number of institutions on other locations. So we would appreciate it if you could also pledge support for us to enable us to continue enhancing our infrastructure and also the work we do and responsible practices. But I also wanted to highlight that we have a dedicated page on the Make Data Count website with resources for institutions. So I invite you to visit that. And if you have ideas for things that may be useful to you in your setting, for the conversations that you have about data evaluation at your institutions, please do get in touch. We plan to continue adding to that. So with that, you have the contact details there, and welcome any comments or questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's so comforting to know that somebody's worrying about our data and research assessment of data sets. So thank you. And also that all that corpus is open and for an open license is amazing. So thank you for your work that you're doing. Okay, we have come to our last infrastructure, and unfortunately it's someone else who was not able to join us here in person, but in spirit, he is here. So I will show one more short video to introduce you to SciPost if you're not already familiar with them. So let me start with opening the video first. How about that? Just one moment. All righty, and share my screen. Wonderful. Okay. So this is an introduction to SciPost with Jean-Sébastien.
My name is Jean-Sébastien Co. I'm a professor of physics at the University of Amsterdam. In 2016, out of growing frustration with the state of academic publishing, I founded SciPost, which is a not-for-profit grassroots initiative aiming to put control of publishing back in the hands of academia. SciPost is a complete, genuine open access publication portal conceived, implemented, and operated by professional scientists. You might wonder what is meant by genuine open access publishing. Well, quite simply, it's open access without compromises, obfuscations, or shenanigans. In more detail, it's a fully open infrastructure providing publishing with open licenses and copyright to authors, which is run entirely not-for-profit with community ownership and control, and whose services are accessible to all users from anywhere in the world, for authors, readers, with no fees in any form, no paywalls or embargoes, and very importantly, with editorial processes that are not compromising on quality, using open refereeing and expert collegial decision-making. SciPost implements the genuine open access principles through a fully featured online infrastructure, offering all publishing-related services from preprints to metadata. It's designed to serve a wide range of academic fields and specializations with multiple levels of supported output. Since its inception in 2016, SciPost has published 3,000 articles from more than 7,000 authors associated to more than 1,200 organizations throughout the world. It can be viewed as an emerging diamond powerhouse serving the global academic community, including developing countries. On the business side, SciPost positions itself as the antithesis to subscriptions and the antidote to APCs. Our operations have a proven record of cost slashing. Average expenditures are approximately 500 euros per publication, which you'll realize is just a fraction of what you typically pay for an APC. We propose an ethical and equitable business model based on linking publishing activities to benefiting academic organizations, whose donations then sustain us in continuing delivery of our services. Our PubFrax concept relates our expenditures to organizations through author affiliations and publications. So by easily visualizing the value of our services, organizations can set their support level to ensure our sustainability and continued growth. This SCOSS campaign is part of our wider and longer-term fundraising efforts. Our success translates into cost reductions for you compared to what you have been paying in subscriptions and what you will otherwise be paying in APCs. We sincerely hope that you'll embrace our vision and that you'll support us in its realization.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so you have been introduced to the spectrum of 4 amazing infrastructures. And please, if you have any questions, clarifying, don't be shy to ask questions. Some of these things are like, wait, what exactly did they do? Go for it and ask those questions. So Janice, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Rosalie, and thanks everyone for your wonderful presentation. So if anyone had any questions for our presenters, please post them in the chat. We actually have a small audience today, so we wouldn't mind if you unmute and just ask the question as well. So while our audience might be thinking of their questions, I do have one. I really like seeing the existing collaborations between open infrastructures, from your presentation. So I'm just wondering if any of you would like to talk a little bit more about future plans and future opportunities for collaborations, and share a little bit about your vision as well.
Happy to start. I don't know if Rosalie wanted to speak on behalf of the family. Yes, that's a very good point that you raised. From the perspective of Make Data Count, we already have interactions and collaborations with a number of the infrastructures in the SCOSS family. So an example is that we try to work very closely with ROR, which is the PID for affiliations, because that's something that we are working on in the context of our data citation work. We want not just to say there is a citation, provide rich metadata around that citation so that, for example, institutions can find the citations that are relevant to them and segment that information according to their needs. So we do try to really do as much mapping to ROR as we can, and we work closely with the team of the behind ROR to learn about the latest and how we can really keep up with that. And obviously, for example, Dryad is also a member of the SCOSS family, is a data repository that has been doing great work on data usage, and actually we collect a lot of their usage information. It's an example. But I would say that another interesting part from my perspective of the participation in SCOSS is that there are a number of infrastructures, as you have heard today, but also others that are working on open access publications. And for us, one of the visions that we have for our citation data is also to revert it back to the publications to increase the visibility of the data through the article that is citing the publication or mentioning the publication, and essentially elevate the visibility of the data both on the data set side, but also on the article side, and also the richness of the article information that journal is providing. So I think there are great opportunities here to explore how we can again revert some of that back to open access journals, for example.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, I can also say that Janice nicely queued up an article that we're going to publish from I think I have it scheduled tomorrow. It's actually on our site right now, but to be on social media tomorrow, about collaborations across the SCOSS family. So I don't know if you saw that or you were inspired by that.
No.
But yeah, it's perfectly cute, and that's again the kind of really to showcase how working with open infrastructures does really encourage and by design support this collaboration across, and there's just an openness to work together, but there's an openness in the standards to be able to work together, making for a better kind of end user experience. So look out for that article coming out tomorrow. Thanks.
That's wonderful. No, I did not know that, Rosalie. I was really inspired by the presentations today. Any comments from you, Raphael?
Oh, Raphael, yes.
Sorry.
Yes, for Episciences, one of the connection that we'd like to make in the future, as soon as possible, is to connect with more with software heritage. Because, for instance, when you publish an article and you have a software associated to the publication, the thing that we'd like to do is to be able to add a mention on the software heritage page that this software has been used and mentioned in the publication. So this is one of the connections that we are going to make in the near future with software heritage. The thing that we would like to do is to increase the amount of repositories connected to Episciences, so that, for instance, when, let's say, you are a researcher in a country in Africa, for instance, you could be able to select a repository in your country and publish in any overlay journals, meaning that the content is actually hosted by your institution, but published anywhere in one of the overlay journals. So this is the kind of connection that we would like to do. We have journals from many countries, for instance. We also have journals in Africa, journals in Europe. So you could be able to select the repository in your country to host the content in your country, but publish anywhere in any overlay journals. That's one of the goals that we'd like to make in the near future also.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm just double checking if there is any other questions from the audience. Rosalie, I tried to get the link of your survey, but I couldn't get it to work. So I think what we could do is to get your slides after the webinar, and then we'll just share that with the audience, and we'll probably share it wider with Cole as well, to make sure that you get some data from it. Okay, so we are quite close to time anyway, so I think I'll just wrap up. So I would like to thank our presenters again, especially for all of you who joined us in a very inconvenient time. So thank you for being here and sharing what you're doing with us. So for our audience, I hope you will talk to your colleagues about SCOSS and our infrastructures. And let them know about this webinar and share the recording with them. We need to invest in open infrastructure if we want to advance open access and open scholarship. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, I'll let you go. Thank you for joining.